What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Music Theory Logic. My name's Andrew, and today is going to be another music theory breakdown. So before we get further, if you find these videos helpful, make sure you subscribe. You'd help me out a lot. So, Music Theory Breakdown is where I recreate popular songs so that I can showcase you some of the music theory principles that we can see used in these songs. So our song today is going to be Closer by the Chainsmokers featuring Halsey. Let's go ahead into our session. So if you haven't seen these videos before, this is going to be an instrumental recreation of the song. Now, I always say this, but just to remind you, I'm not really focused on recreating all of the sound design or all of the instruments. I do try to make it listenable and make it as close to the original as I can in an reasonable amount of time. I do not play the originals at the risk of a copyright and not being able to have this video on YouTube. So if you haven't heard the song, which I would find really hard to believe, but if you haven't heard it, stop the video right now and go listen to the original. Here is my recreation of the Chainsmokers, Closer, featuring Halsey, and that would be the instrumental. Here we go. It's essentially like the first verse, drums pick up, and we get our bass. It's like our pre-hook section, some big pads. Cool. I'm going to go ahead and stop it there just because in the interest of time, I want to make this as concise as possible. So the song obviously has different lyrics as the song keeps going. We basically have a verse, chorus, which is kind of a pre-drop section, the drop, the main instrumental, back to the verse, the pre-chorus, pre-drop section, the drop. Then there's a bridge, which is essentially the same progression with different vocals, and then finally the drop again. So let's take a look at some music theory. So this song is really in the key of F minor. F minor has 4 black keys. We have A flat, B flat, D flat, and E flat. Again, if you wanted to find the notes to that and you can't remember this or want to take the time to find those flats, you could just draw all the white keys from A to A up here, and then you could drag those notes down, just like that. If I drag that down to F, that works because A minor is our simplest minor scale. So here we have the notes. Now I gave you the relative major as well, which in this case is A flat major. The reason I did that is because although the chord progression is in the key of F minor, and thus we would basically call this song in the key of F minor / A flat major, the main drop melodic section emphasizes the relative major more, which gives it that sort of happy feel. Cool. The chord progression is essentially a D flat major chord, which is a major 6 in the key of F minor, followed by the E flat major chord. One minor note is that's a D flat major 9th with that E flat added on the top. All of those notes are in our key. The next chords are E flat major, that's the 7. And then we go to our 1 chord, our F minor, which is a 1/7, a minor 7, F, A flat, C, and E flat. The progression has a slightly different rhythm to this, but I'll play the chords for you. So here's the D flat major, major 9, E flat major, F minor 7, E flat major. Cool. Now that covers the chords for the song. So let's take a look at our chord layers. So we have basically a pad, a keyboard sound, and a string layer. In the intro, we basically get the same rhythm of the chord progression. Basically, the pre-chorus has these, and the intro has these sustained chords, so they're held out. They're not the staccato, the stabs that happen in the verses, but it is the same rhythm. So that is a dotted half note. No, it's a half note with an extra eighth note. So that is essentially a half note tied to an eighth note, followed by a dotted eighth or an eighth tied to a quarter, depending upon how fluent you are in reading rhythms. In a 16th note grid, that's basically 4, 8, 10 boxes of the first chord, followed by 6 boxes. And that pattern repeats: 10 boxes followed by 6, 10 by 6, 10 followed by 6. Again, that's basically like 5/8 notes followed by 3/8 notes, or 10/16, depending upon how you want to think about that. Let's look at the verse section. So this is where we get the strings that enter, and we get that same rhythm of the changes, but we get some extra strums, if you will, or stabs of the chords. I'll play this while we look at the MIDI. So where the chords change is the same, the chord value is the same, but we get these extra stabs. So on the first E flat, we get 2 of them, 2 eighth notes in a row, and on the second time we hit E flat on the way back, we get 3 eighth notes in a row. That gives the chord some cool movement, some strumming value. Let's look at our drums for this verse section. Quite simple. We've got a standard backbeat. So I should have mentioned at the beginning, we are at 95 beats per minute, and we have what I call a standard backbeat. That is the snare in this song. It's a clap and a snap sound. That is on beat 2 and beat 4, or the second and fourth quarter note. Then we have a syncopated kick pattern, which basically mimics the chord changes. So we have that on the 1, and then where that E flat chord changes, we get our second kick. This pattern basically repeats until the end of 4. We get an extra little eighth note kick drum. Cool. That covers the drums in that section. The next section, which is the second half of the verse, we get the keyboard sound coming in with the sustained chords. It's the same chord progression from the intro. Our drums, then we get a crash cymbal. We get sort of like a maraca sound that I'm layering with a closed hi-hat. I'll play that while we look at it. Cool. Now, that drum section is actually the same drum section from our drops, slightly mixed differently. The drums are bigger in the drop. But what is similar is that the second half of the 8 bars goes to essentially we get some extra claps, and that is that sort of syncopated, what I've referred to in my text linked below as the reggaeton rhythm. We've got the 4th 16th note, so that's like essentially a dotted eighth tied to a 16th, followed by the next second eighth note. I'll show you that while we hear it. Cool. That gives the beat some development. And again, this song is really a cool example, a good introduction to music theory if you're still trying to wrap your brains around what this stuff is. because it's somewhat consistent and repetitive. So we get a lot of the same drum grooves, the same chord progression goes through the whole song. It's just a difference in terms of whether we're holding the chords or we're doing a rhythm that's different than that. Cool. So then that brings us to our pre-chorus section, or our pre-drop. The drums go away and all of our chords go back to the sustained chord progression. Now, and we also get our bass line following that same sustained note. Should mention that bass comes in halfway through that first verse, and it's essentially mimicking that strum pattern. So this is what the string sound is doing, and all of the chords that are doing that, what I call a staccato attack. And this bass note has the same lowest note of these chords and the same attack. So it looks identical because it is. Nice. This next section, the bass, again, is identical to those low notes. I guess with one caveat, that E flat still has that same rhythm in there, the 2 and the 3. Nice. This is also a build-up, but what's interesting about this song is the build-ups really only lasts essentially 2 measures. That makes this song a lot more of a radio hit, which it is, and not as much of sort of like an EDM track meant for mixing. A lot of remixes of this track will have more of an 8-bar exaggerated build-up that just makes it easier to mix. The reason they didn't do that here, compositionally speaking, is because the vocals, again, this is the pre-chorus that Halsey is singing, and which is kind of like the chorus, the big part of the singing. That's what I'm trying to say. Cool. So that build up that happens in the second half, we get this snare roll that looks like this. I'm going to play it. Keep in mind this is going to be a little loud. I'll even turn it down to save our ears. Cool. So it's basically 7 quarter notes, so that snare roll. We get a cool drum roll sound. You can create that by drawing some really fast MIDI notes in there. It's not even perfect if you look at it, but that actually helps with the whole sound of a drum roll. When somebody's doing it, it's not precise, so neither should ours be in the computer if we want this to sound smoother. And then finally, that last quarter note of this 2-measure sequence, we get our clap that happens right on the beat. In the pattern the first time, we get our snare on the second 16th note in that same parallel beat. So in many ways, that clap feels like it's early, but that is kind of like a jarring, get ready for the drop kind of thing they're doing, which works really well. At that same moment, we're getting some filtering of the lead, essentially, that we also heard in the intro filtered. It's happening an octave up. It's very subtle, but if you go back and listen to it, it is there. It also sounds like this lead instrument is a synth layered with some sort of vocal chop. So I am using Pigments by Arturia. I'm also using, I'm using all Pigments on the lead. For some of the other stuff, I'm using Jupiter, also by Arturia, and Iris 2 by Isotope for the pads. And then the drums are just the Hit Machine basic default or Logic drum sound. Cool, let's look at our melody note. I'm going to look at the main section. So first of all, we get a pickup. A pickup means that the part that's like really loud for that drop starts a quarter note early, which is at the same time as that clap sound. Works pretty well to just like lead the drop in. Nice. The main notes that we're using are 3 notes, which again I said are easier to think about as in A flat major, because we're literally using like from A flat major 1 2 3 1 2 3, and then we go down to its 7th scale tone. The reason this works for F minor as well is, first of all, A flat and C, the 1 and 3 of the major, relative major, those notes are in our F minor chord. So that will work. And then when we go down to G, all of these notes are still in our relative minor, our F minor that I was also talking about. Cool. Rhythmically speaking, we kind of have a steady eighth note happening here, where it goes like 2 1 1 2 2 1 1, and then 3 3 1 1 2 2 1, and all of that repeats. Pretty cool. It's again somewhat creative. This steady eighth note sound works really well in the future bass because it's just super driving. In terms of the melody composition that I've talked about before, this doesn't have as much phrasing, but it almost doesn't matter because it's about like the whole attack of the instrumental and how it makes you feel like dun dun dun. It almost makes you want to like pump your fist to the melody. There's one minor thing to talk about, which is a grace note that's happening a couple times here. And what that means is that instead of just going straight to that B flat note, we basically go into it from our A flat really quickly, like tling. Anytime we do that super fast note, so fast we wouldn't call that necessarily a rhythmic value in the beginning, although it looks to be like a triplet 16th note, but anyway, a really short note that leads into it, that just helps with like the attack of it, makes it sound pretty cool. So to translate to some of our own songs, when you're writing a melody, try to add a little bit of like grace notes or perhaps even pitch bends, subtle pitch bend automation. All of those little nuances really help a lot to give our melodies a little bit of more context. Cool. So I will play that one more time, but where we just see our drop melody. Here we go. Cool. I didn't mention that second half of our melody. It starts to change. You probably noticed that instead of repeating the notes, we're still doing the eighth note rhythm, but we're going 1 3 1 or 3 5 3, depending upon if we're thinking about A flat or F being our root note or our tonic. Let's say we're in A flat. We're going 3 1 3 1 2 2 1 7. Those are our notes, or C, A flat, C, A flat, B flat, B flat, A flat, G. Again, both of those notes are in our relative major and minor because, again, that's what those words mean, two scales that have the same notes. Cool. So let's see. Am I missing any section? Let's play that one more time for the drop section, just so now you can listen for how the melody changes. Here's the change. Awesome, there it is. Now, I wish I had the acapella to this song. Maybe I'll look for that because it would be helpful to talk about that vocal melody. One thing to listen to when you go back and listen to the original, which I encourage you to, is how the melodic, the notes that are happening in this drop section, how they parallel or many ways like outline the vocal melody. That's one of the secrets, compositionally speaking, or to this music theory that helps songs like this that have singing on them and an instrumental drop section, kind of a parallel to a guitar solo from the 60s or 70s. But we want things in the instrumental section to mimic or reference what happened in the song, melodically speaking, in general, because it helps it all to tie it together. Believe it or not, with some of your favorite songs, whether you realize it or not. If you listen back, I bet you will notice certain overlap, like a song, pick your favorite guitar solo. If you picked out the notes from the guitar solo and you compared it to the hook or the main chorus melody, you might actually find that there are some parallels, either whether it's phrasing or certain notes or motifs. Really find that a lot, and it helps to tie this all together. So once again, my name's Andrew, and thank you for tuning in to Music Theory Logic. I hope you enjoyed this music theory breakdown of the Chainsmokers hit Closer. Hopefully you've discovered perhaps something new about chords or scales, or have some ideas on your own songs. If you found this helpful, you'd help me out a lot by subscribing to the channel. And if this is helpful to you in your music production, share some music below. I'd love to get all of us who are watching, and me making the videos, connecting outside of just YouTube. So yeah, let's share each other's music, and I'll see you guys next time. Cheers and happy music making.